But hello, welcome to our presentation. My name's Emily, and we're going to be talking about unexpected and creative paths to ecological citizenship today. As I said, there is four of us, and we're going to explain a little bit why we're all on the stage today together. But before we do that, we're going to introduce ourselves. So, shall I go first?
If you could click.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Here we are. We're also in life, it's perfect.
Should we start? Do you want to start at one end to go out the other? Right then.
So we're going to do a audio description of ourselves. So I'm a middle-aged white female with light brown hair. I am British. I was born in London but raised in Morecambe Bay.
I'm Sarah. I am early 40s. Used to have blonde hair, now it's gone brown as I've got older. I'm mainly wearing black and blue and some green boots that don't really match, but I very much love. And I'm really excited about being here. I love Communicate. I have been over the years and really excited to be back here again.
Hi everyone, my name's Emily. I have brown curly hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing blue tights, which a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about. And I've had quite a lot of caffeine today, so I'm feeling a little bit, we'll just say excited. We'll say excited.
Hi everyone, I'm Annalaura. I'm a Southern European heritage. I've got straight brown eyes, brown hair, short, brown eyes, and today I'm wearing a blue top, blue socks, and black leggings and black shoes. And days like today, I feel a little bit excited and nervous and curious, so my energy is a bit like fizzy, like when you open a fizzy drink. So here we are, thanks.
So we are all here today on the same stage because myself and Sarah are part of a research project called the Ecological Citizens Network Plus. So I myself am based at the Royal College of Art. Sarah?
I'm at the Stockholm Environment Institute at the University of York.
And we are part of this project that is exploring what ecological citizenship is and what it can mean for positive environmental and social behaviours in the UK. So we are an EPSRC funded research project. That's the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, which is part of UKRI. And what our work is doing is basically looking at the potential of ecological citizenship to transform communities. And so a lot of our work is, we have different strands of our work. So we are a research organisation, a research group, a collective, based at the Stockholm Environment Institute at the University of York, based at the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology at Wrexham University in Wales, and at the Royal College of Art. So as a cohort, as a collective, we span all sorts of different disciplines, from art to education to citizen science and environmental science and behaviour change. And our project, which is a 4-year research project, is all about looking at the gaps in between, effectively. So looking at what we can be doing together as collectives to improve the environment for better futures. We're doing that in 3 kind of different ways. We are a research project. As I said, we've got some amazing researchers as our team. We are a network, so we're doing a lot of connecting up all the amazing work that already goes on. Ecological citizenship is one way of describing the thing we're doing, but it's not the only term, and it's not a new concept. There is incredible work going on across the width and length of the UK. But also, we are a funding project. And so we very generously and very luckily have some funding from the EPSRC to give to other projects to explore what ecological citizenship could be from different locations, from different disciplines, and from different perspectives. So we are joined on stage today by 2 of our wonderful projects that we are funding. We have Mitch Turnbull and Annalaura Alifuco. And instead of us talking about the work they're doing, we thought it'd be much better if they came and talked about the work they're doing. It's a much nicer way to hear about exciting things that are going on. Just to note, we are all about multidisciplinary research. And so a lot of the things that we get to fund are explorative or experimental and may not typically be funded in this kind of research, which is why it's so exciting. And we're very lucky to kind of be able to support smaller scale or kind of experimental projects like this. So, oh yeah, I was going to talk about this. So we have 3 rounds of funding that we've been doing. All our funding is now kind of used up with 29 different projects. As I said, this is only 2 of the projects we're funding. We've got a huge list of other ones. And I've just got some images of all the different projects we're funding. I'm not going to go through them because we just don't have time, but do have a look on our website and you can see little bios about each of the 29 projects that we are funding. From a real mix of disciplines, locations, geographies, and with a huge amount of work that's working with different communities, different industries, different businesses, and different local authorities. This was split into 3 rounds. The first round was all about materials and resources. The second round was all about the natural world, and each of these pictures represents a different project. And the third round, which is about to kind of kickstart, It's all about co-creating everyday ecosystems with communities. So,
we just wanted to spend a few minutes now to get you to have a bit of a think about what idea for engaging or connecting with others have you always wanted to try? And I've been really inspired by some of the things I've heard today. So this is your opportunity to maybe get pen to paper. We've put some paper and pens out for those of you who are in the room, and those of you who are online, we've got a Mentimeter. And so if you could just put your ideas, so what idea for engaging or connecting with others have you always wanted to try? We've got a couple of minutes. So have a bit of a think, write something down, and then if you want to share with the person next to you, you can. But speed thinking.
speed thinking. Okay. Nice.
And then, yeah, those who are joining online, if you want to type on the Menti, if you can access it, and then we should be able to see the results.
I realise we can't chat. I'm just going to do this. I never know.
Good, Mentimeter's work.
I was going to say.
I forget about Mentimeter. It's such a good tool, isn't it? It's such a brilliant tool.
It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know why I don't use it more.
Ooh, you can do it in the room as well.
Yeah,
can't you?
yeah,
So
exactly.
people think, yeah.
Zine machine.
Oh, public jam making. Love that one.
Poetry slam sounds great. Something like this, isn't it?
I can't see this one, sadly.
Oh, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Visual, I love visual minutes. All right, thank you, everybody. It's great to see some ideas coming in. Always challenging to get people to stop talking. Maybe if I cough. Nope, didn't work. Yes, there we go. Some great ideas coming in. Thank you all. Really nice to hear the discussions in the room. But online, if you can see some of the things that people have said, we've got public jam making. I love that. Like we were talking over lunch about how food really brings people together. It's something everybody has to eat, so food can be a really useful way of bringing people together. Visual minutes, expressive dance, poetry slam, fantastic. Some really nice things to read about there. So we are going to, hopefully that's sparked off your thoughts a little bit, and we'll be inspired by the rest of our speakers later on.
Oh, there we go. Yes, so without further ado and without wasting time, because we've got lots of exciting stuff to talk about, I'm going to hand over to Annalaura, who is the PI, the Principal Investigator, and leading the Flow Walk Drag project, which is one of our amazing projects based at Liverpool Hope University. And Annalaura and their team at Liverpool Hope and across Margate and Liverpool have been doing some amazing work. So yeah, I'll hand over to Annalaura. Yeah, that one.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Just to say, if you ever feel cold in the room, just don't hesitate to kind of move around or make yourself warm. And if you still want to check that you're breathing, just take your pulse. And something else that's really useful for sort of a re-regulation is just to tap it everywhere. Here is a good spot, here is a good spot. And then we'll see that we'll check if we're all here and alive and kicking together. So there's a lot about the project on the website, and you can link up. So it's where queer joy meets ecological citizenship. So very briefly, you'll see online, it's two sites. Water, land sites is Margate and Liverpool, and the histories are connected to this set of relations that include this element. And it's about micro and macro, so microorganism and macro histories, and how this efficiently and efficiently link together the history of the sites, but also of climate justice, climate injustice, and human rights and human injustice. And so how to achieve ecological activism through science and art and activism. So this is the opening image. This is the site in Margate, and this is, so it's two walks. Two walking tours, one in Liverpool, one in Margate, led by a microorganism in drag. And the microorganism in Margate is E. coli, and the microorganism in Liverpool is cholera. for reasons that might become apparent. And this is our wonderful performer in drag, Laura Wyatt O'Keefe. So I'd like to start with a question to you. So what stories carried you here today? So you can use your internal voice and you can make this as literal, figurative, or philosophical as you like. What story carried you here? And it could be, as I said, very literal, the train, someone woke me up this morning, I came here, or I'm interested in science communication, or I'm very passionate about ecology and art, etc., etc. What are the stories that carried you here? So I'd like just a moment for yourself, internal voice, and then I'll see if there's any oversharer in the room that would like to also open up to external voicing. So just one moment. Good. That's the moment when I check. Any oversharer would like to tell about what story carried them here? Or shall we keep internal voice? Any taker? Any giver? Please?
Slightly philosophical, slightly broad. A desire to connect people to nature. It's what feels for me.
So we have desire in the room. Someone has brought desire into the space. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Oh, we need the roving mic.
There was a point. Someone, half a mouth open?
You need a mic. Wait for the mic.
I'll go for it. So, again, a little bit philosophical, but I was brought here because I was invited by Savita. I was invited by Savita because I talked at another talk, and that went well. And I talked a little bit about being a minority ethnic person in that talk. And I guess also the reason why I like talking as well is because I've moved around a lot as a child. And that's because I'm Bengali as well. So I think there's like a lot of things that led to this moment now, which is interesting.
So many things that led us to this moment. And in this moment, there's a lot of sort of things that we carry along with, by, and from. And so the thing is that in a moment, we could sort of like maybe spell out or internally. So the stories that we are carried by include a lot of others alongside us, including sort of desires, conversations, invitations, but also life experiences. So in a sense, like what I want to start with is like the story that we wanted to tell with this kind of like weird, wacky project, but also wonderful, that sort of like that drags through the streets of Liverpool and Margate, but also beyond. So the idea is that in the architecture of our so-called humanity, we have lived philosophically. Someone introduced this morning the idea of, was it you perhaps, of the humanism as a philosophy, as a way of living. So they build the house and the story of separation, that we discern the world according to things that we recognize as not like me, as others, where I'm a separate thing, and I'm separate from you, and you're separate from you. And so it's kind of like we are ourselves in a world of others, or of objects, sort of this idea of versus separation. And oftentimes it takes the nature of sort of opposites. And no one goes, or we call them binaries, and no one goes to the school of binaries, but we all seem to recognize them. And one, for example, is human and nature. As if we sort of like, there's recognition that carries misrecognition, that we are separate for something that we intrinsically belong to as human, animals, mammals, cellular soups, etc., etc. Another one is self. Can anyone help me? School of binaries, self and other. There you go. There's another form of separation. We kind of recognize it. And another one oftentimes is science and, can anyone hazard a guess? Art. Science and art. So the idea of recognizing the world through opposite of separation, through world of others, and anyone who's if we started unpinning the science of, for example, visuality, sort of the idea that this is all of reflection and refraction, and that's how we see objects in the world, but nothing is separate. We're part of this particle infrastructure of material beings that expand in space and time. What did I just say? Not sure. So we move on. So the story that we wanted to tell is an other story, and a story that's always been there. It's always been available to us. And nowadays it comes recognized through the tag of entanglement. entanglement. And, it could be like meta-ontological, physical, or metaphysical. The idea is that everything is part of everything else. Everything is part of everything else. And in this kind of cellular soup or particle infrastructure, I think it's not that it doesn't flatten everything. So there is different, but there is difference without separation. And a really practical example, it could be that, most of you might recognize this as a human, but if I were sort of like on laid flat and opened up, sort of you can separate the parts. So maybe the organs, the cells, the bacteria, the little bit of fur here and there. But then would you recognize that as a human? So those things may be separate, may be different parts. But the inseparability of it makes it sort of human. So this is the version of me rather than myself as a corpse on a flat surface. So this has always been there, and indigenous cosmologies have always recognized this. Quantum physics is catching up, and ecology shows that every day, sort of like this link. So, stories, they're very real. So there's more bacteria in your belly button than humans in the world. Your microbiome changes every time you kiss your lover or your pet. We are 99% microbial. So when people say, we are the 99%, that's microbe, the 1% is human. So you see kind of the story all of a sudden takes a different dimension. So not separation, but relationship, interdependence, and co-emergence. So this is the story that we wanted to tell through this little project. So how do things shift? I wanted to get a sense of sort of at least like aesthetically or synesthetically this project takes shape. So today I will represent mostly like the Liverpool branch because I'm based in Liverpool, Liverpool Hope University as part of this project, and so like I'll introduce that as part of the walk. And I should have said, so this was the moment of gathering when we were gathering people for the walk by the Anglican Cathedral in Liverpool City Centre. Could we please play the stinger?
Hello friends, it's everyone's favourite bacteria, cholera, here to invite you to look deep inside yourself and make some new connections on our upcoming viral tour. Ever wondered what a microscopic entity's perspective of history would be? And what might we learn from an infectious disease? Well, join the fun and get your tickets yesterday to find out. I'm just one glass of dirty water away. See you there.
Thank you. So I wanted to just run through very quickly 3 stories that come along the walk. So the first one is the story of the Great Famine. So we are in the St. James's Park, just behind the Anglican Cathedral, which is quite monumental. So it's sort of like standing up right above us. And those is the area with the children's where the children's are placed. And the story here that we say is of the fungus-like spore Phytophthora infestant, or the potato blight, that caused the so-called famine in Ireland. And the story that we say is that this was called a natural disaster, but we trace through the work that we did with storytelling and the communities, it was like a history of colonial violence. What happened? The Irish forced to grow a monocrop in terms of, it's not just in all the colonial lands. So England was exporting all sorts of things from Ireland, beef, grains, milk, but the Irish were forced into famine. And at the time, what was said is that the famine was attributed to the fact that the Irish were selfish, perverse, and turbulent. So the idea is cholera thrived during this time. There were 1 million that died, 2 million that fled, and this was the Irish genocide. So what caused? Was it the microorganism that caused the disaster, or was it the history of colonial violence or some specific political decisions? The second story that we find alongside our walk is the invasive species. So I don't know if you know about the Badlia or the butterfly bush. So also transited through the trade routes, ships, boats. There's boats that have to be kept away, but at that time were all coming in. And so the Badlia thrives in ruins, every crack that it finds, but it generates gardens. That's why it's called butterfly bush, because it creates very lively crops for other insects. Why is it called invasive? Whose story is that of the invasion of these bodies or these foreign bodies or foreign plants? So what is the difference, I ask you, between invasive species and survivor? What is the difference between it doesn't belong here or it belongs to itself because it thrives where it feels it doesn't belong? And what's the difference between native, who was really born here and who arrived there first and claimed something for themselves through propriety? So the Battlia perhaps is itself sort of something in drag. It's something we all drag in as Battlia, some things we dare to thrive where we don't belong, and people maybe want to push us away or back to where we come from. And the third and last is the cholera itself as a carrier, as the metaphor. Does anyone know how cholera came to England, the island? Shipping routes, trading routes across water. It is contracted by polluted water. What it does is that it dehydrates the body, takes away all the water until you die. How do you cure it? With water, with rehydration. Rehydration solution, salt, sugar, and water. The salt and sugar that fueled the empire, the monocrops that displaced all the ecosystems, and why we're here today, perhaps. So, and also like political decisions, 99% effective. Why do we still have cholera in Haiti, in the Democratic Congo, Republic of Congo, in Mozambique? This sort of like, it's not a medical mystery. This is political history of decisions and history of separations. So this was our project. How do we face our shit together? How do we compose or compost new stories? So this is not an informational problem. We don't need more data. We don't need more kind of surveys. We know what it is. It's a relational story. We have to recognize that we're recognizing the fact that we're all entangled. So queer joy and drag are used as a method, is rigorous, but it's sort of like this idea of things so queer and wild that seem not to belong together, they're actually united as one, as an act, an art of resistance. And the question for you today is, what stories are you going to carry forward? What lives does your work make disposable? What are the choices that you make? Who do you include in your work and who is left out? And then can you practice more entangled ways of working with this kind of desires and people that you carry along and expression of lived experience? And that's us, I think. Thank you. And I think they will take questions at the end. Thanks very much. And I'm just going to pass on to Mitch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annalaura. Gosh, how do I follow all of that? Amazing passion. I'm Mitch Turnbull, and I am from the University of Bristol, but I'm also a filmmaker. I've spent 30 years making films, natural history films. Been very lucky to go to lots of different countries in the world and work with amazing organisations and broadcasters to make these films. When I make these films, we talk about films as being this sort of strongly visual element, right? That we're presenting these stories through these images, these beautiful images that we're creating with amazing cameras like this, which is a high-speed camera. But something I've always been passionate about is the sound of the habitat that I'm in. And in fact, I had a transcendental experience, I would say, when I was working in a rainforest in Irian Jaya, West Papua now, and in the 90s, and I went into the forest to record sounds as part of a film I was making about the Bird's Head Peninsula. And as I sat recording that sonic transition from day to night, I had a moment of, a transcendental moment, and realized the importance of sound in our habitat, and started wondering about this concept of how we are connected to the natural world through sound, but actually we've forgotten how to listen. And I believe that actually this is a really interesting tool to connect people with the natural world. And I think there's a sort of growing sort of sense that people are beginning to understand this and use this tool as a way to connect people to the natural world. My question, this project is a feasibility study, so I've got a tiny amount of funding. I am a very new researcher as well. As I say, I have 30 years in industry, and I've come to the university as a sort of now young researcher. But the question that I'm looking at the University of Bristol are what are the superpowers of immersive technologies to enhance engagement with the natural world. Not only have I made films with traditional cameras, but since 2015 I've been making films and content using immersive technologies. So that's virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, projection mapping, large-scale immersive experiences. And so that's my sort of primary question around the work that I'm doing at the university. So sound is part of that. And actually the Listen to Bristol project is kind of taking it a step back from the immersive element, but taking people into nature through the use of sound. So it's the sort of almost like the analog approach, but the beginning, I would say, page 1 of approaching this question. So with Listen to Bristol, the questions that we were looking to answer were, how can urban soundscapes featuring the sonic signatures of urban wildlife foster nature connectedness in disadvantaged communities? We have one particular community in Bristol, BS5, which is in the, it's got 5% of communities in the UK are in poorer conditions, and this is a very, very poor community and very, very hard to reach community as well in terms of the question around nature and nature connectedness. And then the other question I was looking at was, to what extent can creative interventions using digital audio technologies alongside music composition enhance understanding of the non-human world and strengthen ecological awareness? And can these creative activities encourage pro-environmental behaviours and promote ecological citizenship? So these were the core questions we were asking. And the idea was to try and find various insights. We're not going to read through all of these, just reading slides, very boring. But hopefully you'll watch the video afterwards if you're interested in some of these questions. But we came up with a project where we did a sort of test bed at the Festival of Nature event in June 2025, sorry, where we were at that event, and we did something very simple, which basically was a bunch of images, some sounds on a laptop, and got people to listen to the sounds and identify the image, try and identify put the images with the sound that they were listening to. There was one sort of incident during this day where a young girl came up. She wasn't from Bristol. She had actually sort of was visiting from India. She was with her mum. She was very shy. She was very kind of physically inward. She was actually sort of holding herself like this. And I encouraged her to come to the desk and listen to these sounds and then play this game essentially that we were doing. And she just, her body language literally opened up as she listened to these sounds. And she realized that, you know, because she wasn't from Great Britain, she didn't know the bird species, but we could help her identify them. And then she came back about an hour later and wanted to do it again. And it was just a really lovely moment to see how people respond to those sounds. It's a sort of very natural, beautiful response that people have. And in fact, this boy here started just writing on the wall behind the sounds phonetically, what they sounded like. He was learning English from Azerbaijan, and he was learning English, and so he actually found it really interesting to write the sounds down phonetically, which I thought was really interesting as well. Oh God, I've got all the dates wrong. I'm a year ahead, sorry about this. So we then organised this research workshop. It's quite difficult to understand really how best to approach it. Do we do it over one day? Do we do it over 2 days? How do we do this in terms of keeping people engaged with this activity? And we decided to go for one day, one whole day, where we would have, started from 9 in the morning all the way through to 5 in the afternoon. We'd give everybody lunch. But the idea was to then split that day into an active listening and sound recording workshop, give everybody lunch, and then in the afternoon we would use those sounds to playfully make musical compositions, that with your body or sing or voice or whatever. I'm just going to step back slightly, because the whole idea of Listen to Bristol actually came originally from a friend of mine, Will Goodchild, who's a composer, who I've worked with in the television and broadcast industry. And this bit of funding came across our desk, and I saw it as a perfect way to actually combine what we plan to do with the concept of Listen to Bristol. And actually the feasibility study, we hope, is beginning to build a framework towards that concept as well. But Will is the person who is the music person. And we then invited Ellie Williams, who's an award-winning nature sound recordist, to do the sound part of the workshop as well. So we set this day up. We targeted BS5 as our community. University of Bristol have a micro campus within BS5. So I was very lucky to, first of all, go to the Festival of Nature event at that particular location in June. But also, we were able to go there for a couple of occasions prior to the event and engage with that community through particularly another research group who's sort of opening up that microcampus to researchers, University of Bristol researchers. But that was a really important process for us to actually start to engage with the community. We could start testing the questionnaires that we had as well. Were they accessible? You know, was the language easily understandable? So it was a really fantastic opportunity to slowly build that relationship with that community. And then we created an Eventbrite page, made some posters, got the posters out there, went to other communities in BS5. And we actually got 35 people signing up. And we knew, we had a very limited budget, so we could only really host 30. But we had 35 and actually sort of stopped at 35. I don't know if I got there. Yeah, so 34 I got there. We then, we had 20 who turned up. We had 16 who decided to take part in the research, and then 13 who completed all the questionnaires. Now, these are very small numbers. Again, this is a feasibility study, but the importance of this was it's beginning to create a framework for us to understand how people are engaging with this concept. So just to go back, the plan was everybody would arrive and they would do first thing they would do was questionnaire number 1. That was capturing a lot of demographics, but also we had some key questions in there that we repeated across the 3 questionnaires, like, I'm just trying to think of one of the questions, what do you understand as the term of ecological citizenship? And they had a list of questions, some of which were things like dressing in green or eating peas. We had these repeat questions so we could see if there was any shift across the day for having done these activities. We started off by just doing what we called a kind of warm-up. After the first questionnaire, we did some warm-up exercises. And we got everybody to sit down and they were in groups. We wanted to kind of mix it all up as well. And we got people to, there were some words on the table, and we got people to come up with one word, a single word that represented nature to them. And what was interesting was, I'll come back to it in terms of looking at the percentage, you can't quite see them because they're hidden, but 58% used words that were provided in that particular exercise, 42% used their own words. And this is, I made a word cloud in terms of the words that were used from that one question. So what we were trying to do was get a sort of understanding of what nature meant to them. And then the next question we asked them to do was just use 3 words to describe a significant event or a significant encounter with nature. And what was really interesting is that it dropped right down to 16% used the words that were provided and jumped up to 84% of people using their own words. So again, even within the time of that first exercise to this next exercise, people were beginning to understand what we were asking and were feeling comfortable about branching out a little bit. And then one of the questions, as I say, in our questionnaire was, does nature and the natural environment make you feel? And they had, I'm going to go back actually, because I've forgotten to mention one thing. So one of the other exercises we did after those 2 first exercises, we bought these little birds, which are actually RSPB birds. And they were in the group, and we got them we had 4 tables, and we had 4 different birds, and we got them to play these birds and then talk about what the sounds meant to them. So here we've got a great tit, and we've got a goldfinch here, and they would play those, and we'd get them to talk about those sounds and the calls, and what did it make them feel. So that was the sort of warm-up exercises. Then we went into the sound exercise. I'm just going to go back to that. The reason I'm putting that here is because this is one of the questions that we asked across the 3 questionnaires. And I'm just putting that there now to sort of, the words were given, they had a choice of a sort of select words there, which you might not be able to see, but the words were happy, sad, anxious, awed, calm, fearful, joyful, angry, love, disgusted. So this is just one question in one of the questionnaires that we went back to 3 times. But I'm just going to park that there for now because we'll see some of the responses. First exercise, though, was working with Ellie Williams, who's the sound recordist. And she talked about what we were going to do. the technology that we were using, which are Zoom recorders and little microphones at the top of the Zoom recorder, which are covered in the wind jammers there, is what you can see. She talked about that, and then we went out and we listened to nature, actively listened to nature, and then we recorded nature. And this was all within this community around BS5. Remember, this is October. I was very anxious about what we actually would hear because, of course, ideally you might want to run this exercise in sort of April, May, when you're going to get a lot of birdsong in an urban area. But actually, it was amazing what we picked up. It was brilliant. We picked up some amazing recordings. In fact, in the morning, before the whole session started, I heard a robin singing in the neighbourhood. And I was thinking, please stick around. And as we came out, it was still singing. So the first thing we did was immediately went to the robin. And that was wonderful because people got it straight away. You know, the fact that they could hear it straight away, that we did a bit of active listening, but then they could record it. And then we split off into different groups. And then we wandered around for about an hour in the neighbourhood and all came back to the sort of same location after an hour or so. And I just thought, actually, I'm going to just do a little exercise. I don't know if has anybody ever done active listening? Does anybody know what I mean by saying that? Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise, okay? Which, I do quite a lot when I talk about immersive technologies and how we can, am I still going? How we can use immersive technologies. So listening to sound, actively listening to sound, what I get people to do is to close their eyes. If everybody's happy to close your eyes, it's going to last about 2 or 3 minutes, this. So close your eyes, and I want you to just think about the space that you're in and just listen and try and tune into the sounds in the space. Really just listen to every sound that might be around you and think about the direction that sound is coming from. This is a way of listening to that 360 space that's around you, but it also helps you really listen hard to that environment that you're in. So we're all going to go quiet for a little while. I'm going to bring you all back into the room now because I've told we're a bit tight for time. So, but you might, just quick show of hands, did anybody hear anything in that space, and what did they hear and where did they hear it from? Which direction was it coming from? Anybody want to? I don't know if anybody heard the birds, but I put some bird song in there, but just sort of something for you to listen to. But it's a really wonderful way to sort of get people to tune in, and I would encourage you to do it for at least 5 minutes and really get people to sort of tune into that sound around them, block out any sort of visual stimuli that you might come across. So just there, here's the questionnaire 2 after our sound recording. This was the sound cloud that was created. So there was a little bit of a shift from the first one, which is happy, calm, and now we're sort of seeing joyful and happy. It's a very distinctive shift in terms of how people felt. Then this was followed by the music exercise we did with Will and Dan there. And we got people to actively move around, make sound, make noises, and we recorded them. And that was the word cloud after that exercise as well. So, and then what was the result from the recording? Dan was brilliant. While we were sort of all went and had a cup of tea, he pulled together and created 2 pieces of music that came out of the combination of the sound recordings that everybody made in the morning and the sounds that we made as human beings and physicality of being in that space. So here's the... that last sound you heard was actually somebody pinging a stick on a bit of railing, and that's all part of it too. These are sounds that are in our urban environment, and we combine them with the sound of nature, voice, and children singing and shouting, and that's what we recorded in the morning. And then Dan went away and actually did this additional sort of piece as well. So we'll just... Those are all sounds that we recorded on the day that he then sampled and then made them into composition. So really sort of beautiful exercise. And just very quickly, I guess we've run out of time, but what we hope to take this further. We would like to get more funding to do a bigger study, get some more data in place. We're currently looking at the data, working out, what's the outcome from that data. But the overall impression, it was incredibly positive. Everybody wanted another event. It was all good. It was all good, basically. And ultimately, we'd hope that we could maybe create a framework that would help organisations build, listen to Manchester, listen to London, listen to Liverpool, so we can replicate this idea in different cities across the UK and maybe around the world.
Thanks, Mitch. Fabulous. So I think we've probably got time for maybe 2 questions. I think we've got a roving mic somewhere. So who would like to ask a question, either of the panel as a whole or a particular individual? Michelle? Okay. All right, I've got a starter question. Oh yeah, we've got a question down here. Thank goodness you don't have to listen to my question. If you just wait for the mic so the online people can hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those talks were really exciting and inspiring. Just a question relating to the Soundscapes project. I'm working on a project and looking to develop some engagement themes that are relevant to a local visually impaired community. Do you think it would work well with sort of mixed ability? Because I'm thinking it could be a fantastic way for sighted and visually impaired people to collaborate on a project like that.
Yeah.
And maybe to develop an outcome. For instance, we're very good at creating nature guides, aren't we, of the things you should try and see in a certain landscape, but how about the things you should try and hear? I just wondered if you could give me any tips if you think inclusive work would work.
I think it's a great idea, absolutely great idea. And I think combining that visual and the auditory and the sonic aspect, and having a group which have some people who are visually impaired and some people who are sonically impaired would be amazing, actually. And because we learn so much from each other in terms of those sort of capacities, sensory capacities, that some people engage with something different to another person. If vision is your primary sense, but hearing is somebody else's primary sense, I think there's so much to learn from both those approaches. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. And I think Mitch will be around in the break if you wanted to talk further. Any other questions? Yes, go for it.
Representing our online community.
Yes.
For our first presentation, lots of people saying, I agree. But a question about just a bit about creative inspiration and where some of the ideas have come from.
The ideas, So we had a co-production process whereby we worked with communities in Liverpool. We worked with the L8 community, and L8 is kind of like famous in history for the uprisings that happened in the 80s, and also the history of solidarity of people, like people of color coming together with people who suffered the onslaught of HIV, the epidemic, but also the idea of sort of behaviors and politics around that. And so like people coming together, this idea of foreign bodies, of sort of like the undesired or the unwanted, and how, together we can tell a different story. So it is the idea of looking around. And I think, if I'm going off topic a little bit, I was in a very interesting conversation about engaging youth. And I was thinking, how do we feel like that, like youthful? We all feel youthful. And I think it's like when we're surprised, when we're curious and we're open, and those are the same things that happen when we're learning. And so like when we tell the stories this way, like, do you know that this connects to this and connects to this and connects to this? And then the shipping, the vessels that were used for the transatlantic enslavement trade were the same that were used for the whaling industry. And if the whales number went back to the pre-industrial level, they would recycle so much CO2 as acres and acres of forest. And so like when you suddenly, boom, things open up and you say, really? I had no idea. It's curious, it's queer, it's wild. And then suddenly we belong, or we connect to a different story, and we all kind of more youthful. And from that perspective, I think we can reinvent, we can go back to the future and go different ways maybe.
Thank you. I think, as you can see, we could talk about this for hours. We have run out of time. So check out our website. You'll find links to the projects there and all of the other projects we're funding. So thank you very much for having us, and we hope this is the start of a conversation.
Thank you.